A racist Karen calls the cops on me, a black father, for having a son who's white. She accuses me of being a child predator and tries to get me arrested. Joke's on her, she gets arrested. Here's what happened. So I'm a 32-year-old black father living in a small town with my wife and son. My wife is Estonian and my son is the result of our interracial marriage. My son has blue eyes and he got them from my mother. Growing up, I've always been used to people being a bit confused when they see him, but I never thought it would be a problem. I love my son more than anything in the world, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It was a beautiful day, and I decided to take my son to the park. He loves playing with other kids, and I love watching him have fun. I sat on a park bench supervising him as he played with the other kids, laughing and having a great time. So, it was time to leave the park. I shouted at my son and came running as we were leaving the park towards a bus stop nearby. A woman approached us and began to question me. She said, "Excuse me, sir, is that your child?" And I replied, "Yeah, he's my son." I thought she was just asking a genuine question, but she didn't believe me, and then full-on accused me of kidnapping the child. I can understand why she may think that, so I explained to her, "Ma'am, I get why you may think that, but he's my son. My wife is white." But she wasn't satisfied with that and said, "I don't believe you. There's no way that a black man can have a white son." I was getting angry at this point, and I said, "Look, lady, I don't have to prove anything to you. He's my son. End of story." But she still insisted, and even went as far as to ask my son, "Is this man your father?" And my son, who was visibly shaken and confused by this woman's behavior, said, "What do you mean? He's my dad." But for some reason, she still insisted that I was lying and that I couldn't possibly be the father of a white child. Feeling offended, I told Karen to F off, and I tried to leave the park and walk towards the bus stop a few hundred meters away. But Karen followed us and continued to accuse me of being a kidnapper. She was getting louder and more aggressive, and I could see people in around us start to stare at us. I didn't know what to do, to be honest, so I tried to ignore her and just walk away, but she wouldn't let up. She even went as far as to tell me that I don't deserve to be near kids. I was so angry and frustrated at this point that I decided to tell her off and said, "You're a racist piece of shit. My son and I don't have to put up with your bullshit. Leave us the fuck alone." My son started crying at this point, and he was super confused by the commotion and didn't like seeing his daddy screaming. I didn't want to make a scene in front of my son, so I tried to calm down, but Karen wouldn't stop. She even went as far as to call me a pedo N-word with a hard R. And that's when I lost it. I screamed at her. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I probably shouldn't have said such words in front of my son, who was crying harder then, and I could see the fear and confusion in his eyes. I felt terrible, but I couldn't control my anger. Karen then decided to call the police, and I knew that things were about to get worse. I told her not to do it, and she'd regret it, but she didn't listen. So, at this point in time, I was hoping the bus would arrive and I'd just evade Karen and the police, but that didn't happen. The police arrived within minutes, and they spoke to both of us. I explained to one of the officers on what had happened, and the cop then asked my son if I was his father, and he confirmed that I was indeed his father. The cops looked at Karen and could tell she was obviously lying and that this was definitely a racially motivated attack. They apologized to me and asked if I wanted to press charges. I was too shaken and angry to think clearly, so I told them to do whatever they had to do. They ended up cuffing her and arresting her for making a false police report. The whole incident left me feeling drained, and I had a hard time explaining to my son what had just happened. I tried to explain it to him in a way that he could understand, but I don't think he fully understood. I knew that the incident would leave a lasting impact on him, and it broke my heart. I didn't want him to grow up with that hate and fear in his heart, because I myself still have trauma from my childhood. I got home and told my wife what had happened, and she was so furious. Yeah, so that's the story of how I was falsely accused of being a child predator because I'm black and my son's white. I am just in shock reading this story from OP. The level of racism and ignorance displayed by this woman referred to as Karen is truly unbelievable. To accuse a black father of being a child predator simply because his son is white is not only racist, but it is also completely unfounded and ridiculous. I can only imagine the fear and confusion that must have been running through OP's son's mind as this woman accused his father of being a kidnapper. What's more, the way Karen continued to harass and belittle OP and his son, even after he'd explained the truth, is truly disturbing. The fact that she then decided to call the police on OP just adds to the craziness of the situation. It's a relief to know that the police saw through Karen's lies and arrested her. OP handled the situation with such grace and strength, standing up for himself and his son in the face of such racist and unfounded accusations. It's clear that he loves his son more than anything and would do anything to protect him. This story is a stark reminder that we still have a long way to go as a species. Entitled father explodes when I won't hand his teenager a firearm. So this happened this past weekend, and I'm still kind of shaking my head at this one. I'm an amateur competitive shooter. I compete in several disciplines, but by far, my favorite is cowboy action shooting. It's timed, high speed, and a lot of fun. Everyone dresses up as cowboys/girls, uses period weapons, and you pick your own cowboy name. That's right, we're nerds with guns. The best part about the community is that almost everyone tries to give back in some way. The way I choose is to dress up and donate my time telling folk tales at the local library. Mine is the firearms, of course. Several of the other club members will attend heritage days, fairs, and the like. Last week, I get a call from our club president. He tells me that some of the members would be performing at a heritage festival a couple of counties over from me, and he asked me if I'd pitch in and help. I tell him that I'd love to and ask for the details. He gives me all the information and asks me to do him a favor. He wants me to bring the big gun. I laugh and tell him I'd be happy to. The big gun is my all-time favorite firearm. In 1874, Sharp's Quigley, so named because it was used in the Tom Selleck movie Quigley Down Under. I won't go into technical specs, but she's a pig. Roughly 4 foot long and weighing somewhere around 13 pounds. She's even made by the same company that made the rifles for the movie. She's too big, too heavy, too expensive, and I love her. Her name is Cora. If you saw the movie, you'll get it. So I show up on Saturday, drag all my stuff to the booth, and basically stand around looking like knockoff Tom Selleck. Now, there are some strict precautions taken when we do events like this. No live ammunition anywhere on site. We even dig through our vehicles beforehand to make sure we didn't leave any in there by mistake. All weapons are transported in securely locked, hard-sided cases, and whenever they are removed, they have trigger locks on them. The club members that are performing will have blank rounds for fake gunfights, but those are kept in separate locked containers. While I'm standing around the booth, I answer any questions people may have. Yes, it's from that movie. Yes, it will shoot that far. No, I don't think I could do it. As this is going on, I see a boy, maybe 15 to 16 years old, studying my rifle pretty intently. I ask him if he has any questions, and he proceeds to rattle off all the specs of the rifle to me. I'm impressed, and tell him that he really knows his stuff. He tells me that Quigley was his grandfather's favorite movie, and that he used to watch it with him before he died. We talk about the movie, and how awesome Alan Rickman was before he asks if he can hold a rifle. I tell him that I don't have a problem with it if he gets his parents to come over and give their permission. The kid runs off, and after a bit he returns with his father. I knew I was in for a rough time when the first words out of his mouth were, "Why don't you let my son touch the fucking gun?" I could tell that this was typical behavior, by the way, because the kid turned bright red and stared at the ground. All the other club members had gone off for a performance, so I was alone at the booth with the kid and this idiot. I told the man, "Sir, I have no problem with him touching the rifle, I just want your permission first. He's a minor, and I didn't think it was a good idea to hand a firearm to him without your consent." The guy starts to yell at me, saying, "I don't see what the big effing deal is. It's not effing loaded." I respond with, "I take it he has your permission?" "Of course he fucking does." I tell the boy to go ahead. His face lights up as he hefts the rifle, grinning from ear to ear. He asks if I can take his picture, and I agree. I even took my cartridge belt off and let him wear it. Just dummy rounds. Only bullet and casing, no primer or powder. The kid thanks me and starts to walk off before his father stops him. "Do you want to play with any of these other guns?" I inform the father that I don't own those weapons, but he's welcome to wait and ask the people who do. He starts yelling about how he doesn't need permission and how this is a free country and that he can do what he wants. All this yelling gets the attention of the deputies that are patrolling the fairgrounds. A couple of them walk over and tell him that if he doesn't calm down, then he'll be asked to leave. He quickly tells his son that they're leaving, but before they walk away, I call out to him. I pull one of the dummy rounds out of my belt and ask, "Can he have this?" He mumbled something about not caring, so I hand it to his son. I tell the boy what it is and that he can make a keychain or something out of it. I also hand him a club card with my email written on the back. I said, "If you can get permission from another guardian who's willing to bring you out and sign some paperwork, let me know, and you can come shoot a match with us. I'll even bring Cora." I received an email from his mother this evening, and they'll both be joining us for a match in a couple weeks. I'm reading the story, and I'm just in shock at the behavior of this Karen. Like, seriously? Asking to hand a teenager a firearm without consent, and then flipping out when they say no? That's just crazy. And the fact that the OP was so willing to accommodate the kid and his interest in firearms, but still had safety precautions in place is just admirable. It's stories like this that make me so grateful for the responsible gun community out there. Trigger warning. This next story is going to be discussing some sensitive topics. I sent my friend's creepy dad to jail after I found out he was a child predator. Here's what happened. So anyway, before we get into the story, my friend's dad was then divorced. Turns out he was a child predator with loads of CP on his laptop and is in jail. And had about 5 restraining orders after the friends and the friend's parents he stole bras and panties from. Okay, how I found this out was at my friend's birthday sleepover. We were swimming in our pool and we drank some wine coolers with her mom's supervision, still illegal, but we didn't get drunk, just slightly tipsy. So anyway, friend's dad had a strict no locked doors policy. Anyway, I decided to take a shower, so I, of course, locked the door. I was bathing in my friend's bathroom, so I had her bedroom door shut and the bathroom door locked, if that makes sense. So I heard my friend's bedroom door open as I shouted, "Occupied," out of the shower. I got no response except the door shutting quickly, which I thought was just one of the other girls walking in and seeing that I was in there. Anyway, I stepped out of the shower and I stayed in the bathroom while I changed and dried off. All of a sudden, the bedroom door opens again, and when I said occupied, the person didn't stop and went straight for the bathroom door as they jiggled the handle extremely violently and pounded on the door once. I stayed silent as I thought there was someone in the house trying to get me. 10 seconds later, I hear her dad's voice yell, "Open this damn door right frickin' now!" I'm already changed into clean clothes as I stayed silent and slowly opened the door. "Why the hell is the door locked?" he shouted as I apologized and explained I was showering and wanted privacy. As he said, that's no excuse. I pushed that aside as I thought he was in a bad mood or something happened, and he couldn't do anything because the door was locked. I stuffed my dirty clothes into my bag as I went back to the party, which we were all settling down with sleeping bags since the living room was big enough for us. I set my bag right next to me as I have some valuable stuff in the bag. Phone, charger, money, etc. We watched movies up until 4 in the morning, which is when we started to go to sleep. I got a strange feeling about being watched, so I stayed up for another hour on my phone. I fell asleep as about an hour later I hear rustling next to my head. I opened my eyes to see the friend's dad squatting next to me, rumbling through my bag as he pulled out my dirty bra and underwear as he stood up. I screamed at the top of my lungs as everyone woke up. My stuff was everywhere as the dad's friend quickly dropped my stuff. I screamed, "What the frick are you doing?" at him as everyone saw what he did and dropped my stuff. I screamed, "What the frick are you doing?" at him as everyone saw what he did and saw him drop my stuff. He tried to defend himself as his wife came rushing in. "I was making sure you didn't have any drugs," was the excuse he went with. I ran over to the wife and explained what happened as the dad was saying that I'm a lying skank and that I forced him to hold my stuff. He was high on crack or one or the other. As the husband was moved to a different room, and I explained to the friend what her dad did, and she told me someone else, and I guess it spread around. Everyone was panicking as they were all making sure the man didn't take their panties and bras. Then I hear the husband scream, "She stole your underwear!" And so I called the police. Then 10 seconds later, I hear the wife scream as it was just a shit show. We all ran over to her to make sure she was all right, as everything started to go to chaos. Girls were crying and panicking because he had an area which his wife didn't know about. And there were name tags for each underwear pile, like Cindy's underwear, fake name. And there was white stains on some of them. The police arrived and we explained to them what happened as he was taken away. But a few months later, I went to court as my parents were pressing charges. I explained what happened and we won the case. Then about another few months go by and I was talking to my same friend, and she said her parents got a divorce and their dad was in jail for CP and harassment. So I talked to the friend, and it turns out that her dad bought the wine coolers trying to get us drunk. And her mother saved us from who knows what because she cut us off of the wine coolers after like 2 drinks. Who knows what would have happened if we were all passed out drunk? Later, I was again talking to the friend, and this is basically what happened after court, and he was sent to jail. He's still in jail, and he was put into protective custody in the prison at the beginning because, and I quote, "he fricked with the little kids so the prisoners are going to F him even harder," but later was removed for trying to smuggle contraband. The other part is that his daughter, 16 now, went to visit him with her mother just to disown him as her father. And when he arrived at that little phone booth thing, she said that half his hair was pulled out. He was bruised. His uniform was dirty, with who knows what, and he could barely walk. It was the beatings he got, or the stuck up the bum. The rest of the girls there, I don't really know, but I talked to a few of them about a month ago, and 12 to 13 is doing fine. The 13th one isn't bad, but isn't good. She has night terrors from it, and has a service dog to help. What the heck did I just read? What a sicko. I'm glad he's in jail. From what I've heard, people like him do very poorly in jail. The underwear thing is disgusting enough on its own, but the no locked doors thing? Even families that have that rule usually exclude bathrooms, especially with strangers. He was 100% hoping to accidentally walk in on you naked. And I'm honestly sick thinking about how many times he may have accidentally walked in on his daughter, or even just peeked in without her knowing. What do you think about this story? Anyways, please subscribe and click on one of these videos on screen.